Hello, and welcome back to Real Cheating Stories, where we dive deep into tales that make you question everything about love, trust, and betrayal. Today's story takes us to a quiet little town, the kind where everyone knows your name, or at least thinks they do. It's 2015, and we're in Willow Creek, a picturesque place with cozy coffee shops, picket fences, and just enough scandal to keep things interesting. At the center of the story is Marcus Carter, a 34-year-old architect with a knack for turning blueprints into dream homes, and maybe a bit too much faith in the people closest to him. Marcus is the kind of guy you root for. He's hardworking, dependable, and just charming enough to make people feel at ease without coming off as smug. He's married to his high school sweetheart, Emma, who's always been the social butterfly of their relationship. Emma, with her dazzling smile and quick wit, could light up a room just by walking into it. Marcus often joked that she was the star of their small-town soap opera, but deep down, he admired how effortlessly she connected with people. Their relationship wasn't perfect, because let's be honest, whose is? But to everyone in Willow Creek, they were the definition of #couple goals. They had a beautiful daughter, Sophie, who was 6 years old and had her mother's sass and her father's quiet determination. From the outside looking in, Marcus and Emma had it all. A lovely home, stable careers, and a love story that seemed ripped straight from a Nicholas Sparks novel. But here's the thing about picture-perfect lives, they're often just that, pictures. Snapshots carefully curated to hide the cracks underneath. And Marcus, bless his trusting heart, never saw the storm brewing on the horizon. The story kicks off on a chilly October evening. Marcus had just wrapped up a long day at work. He was finalizing the plans for a new community center, something he was genuinely passionate about. As he drove home, he hummed along to the radio, thinking about the pumpkin carving contest he'd promised Sophie they'd do that weekend. When he pulled into the driveway, he noticed Emma's car was gone. Not unusual, she often stayed late at the gym for her Zumba classes, or so he thought. Now here's where things start to get interesting. Over dinner that night, Emma mentioned she might have to stay late at the gym more often. Apparently, there was a new fitness trainer named Jason who was running a special evening boot camp. Emma was practically glowing as she talked about how much fun it was and how Jason's routines were life-changing. Marcus, always supportive, didn't think twice about it. But hindsight is 20/20, right? And looking back, there were signs. Little things that didn't quite add up. Like how Emma's gym bag, once stuffed with basic workout clothes, suddenly had a rotation of new, trendy outfits. Or how she started skipping their Friday movie nights because she was too tired. Or that one time Sophie, in her innocent 6-year-old way, asked why mommy always smelled like someone else's cologne after her gym sessions. Marcus brushed it all off. He trusted Emma. They had been through too much together for him to believe otherwise. Besides, his own workload was heavier than ever, and he was too busy to dwell on minor inconsistencies. But life has a funny way of forcing your hand when you least expect it. Fast forward a few weeks. It's a Saturday morning, and Marcus is heading to the grocery store. Sophie's been begging for her favorite cereal, and Marcus, being the doting dad he is, decides to surprise her. As he's pulling out of the parking lot, he spots Emma's car parked outside a little cafe downtown. At first, he's delighted. Maybe she's grabbing them all breakfast. But then he sees her through the window, and she's not alone. Sitting across from her is Jason, the supposed fitness trainer. He's leaning in close, laughing at something she said. Emma's smiling in a way Marcus hasn't seen in months. It's not the kind of smile you give a friend. It's the kind that makes your stomach do flips. Marcus parks his car but doesn't go inside. Instead, he watches, hoping there's an innocent explanation for what he's seeing. Maybe it's a casual meeting about a gym event. Maybe he's being paranoid. But when Emma reaches across the table and places her hand on Jason's, Marcus feels his world shift. It's a small gesture, but it carries the weight of 1,000 words. Now, Marcus isn't the confrontational type. He's the kind of guy who believes in giving people the benefit of the doubt. So instead of storming into the cafe, he decides to wait. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe he's misinterpreting things. But deep down, a seed of doubt has been planted, and it's growing faster than he'd like to admit. That night, Marcus tries to act normal. Over dinner, he asks Emma about her day. She mentions running errands but doesn't say a word about the cafe. When he casually asks if she's met anyone interesting at the gym lately, she brushes it off, saying the boot camp crowd is mostly just the usual. And just like that, Marcus realizes he's in uncharted territory. For the first time in their marriage, he's questioning Emma's honesty. But he still doesn't want to jump to conclusions. After all, they've built a life together, a family. Surely, there's a logical explanation for everything. But if you've ever been in Marcus's shoes, you know how doubt works. It creeps into your thoughts at the most inconvenient times. Over the next few days, Marcus starts paying closer attention. He notices Emma's phone is suddenly glued to her hand, and she's more protective of it than ever. She's laughing more, texting someone who seems to make her happier than he's managed to in months. And then there's the way she always seems distracted, like she's physically present but mentally somewhere else. Still, Marcus holds back. He doesn't want to accuse her without proof. So he does what any self-respecting partner would do in the digital age. He turns to Google. He types in the dreaded phrase, "Signs your spouse is cheating," and begins to compare the list to Emma's recent behavior. The results aren't comforting. This is the moment Marcus decides he needs clarity. But how do you confront someone you love when you're not even sure you want to hear the answer? So where were we? Oh yes, Marcus, our ever-so-trusting protagonist, is officially at a crossroads. The man who once believed in love, loyalty, and Emma with all his heart is now stuck playing detective in his own marriage. And let's be real, he's terrible at it. I mean, Googling signs of infidelity? Classic move, but not exactly FBI-level stuff. A few days pass, and Marcus can't shake what he saw at the cafe. The image of Emma and Jason, all smiles and giggles, haunts him. It's like a bad rerun that keeps playing in his head. But Marcus is determined to get the truth, without jumping to conclusions. After all, he's not that guy. Yet, the first real turning point comes when Marcus decides to check Emma's phone. Now, before you judge him, let's consider the facts. He's desperate, confused, and honestly starting to feel like a fool. So one night, when Emma is in the shower, he takes a deep breath, picks up her phone, and you guessed it, it's locked. But wait, there's more. The lock screen notification is a message from Jason. "Can't stop thinking about today. You looked amazing." Oof, that one hits Marcus like a ton of bricks. His first instinct is denial. Maybe it's a misunderstanding? Maybe Jason's just overly friendly? But the words keep echoing in his mind. Can't stop thinking about today. What exactly happened today? Marcus doesn't know, but he's about to find out. The next morning, Marcus wakes up earlier than usual. He's restless, and the thought of confronting Emma feels too daunting. Instead, he decides to dig deeper. And by dig deeper, I mean he does the next logical thing, he follows her. That evening, Emma mentions heading to the gym for an extended boot camp session. Marcus kisses her goodbye, watches her leave, and then jumps into his car, keeping a safe distance as he tails her. It feels ridiculous, like something out of a low-budget spy movie. But Marcus's gut is telling him he needs answers. Emma drives straight to the gym. At first, Marcus feels a flicker of relief. Maybe he's overreacting. Maybe this is all in his head. But then, as he watches from the parking lot, he sees her car door open, and who else but Jason comes strolling out to meet her. They exchange a hug that lasts a little too long to be just friends. And then here's the kicker. They get into Jason's car and drive off together. Now Marcus is furious. His heart is pounding. His hands are shaking. And all the trust he once had in Emma is starting to crumble. But he stays calm, well, as calm as one can be while following their possibly cheating spouse. Jason's car pulls into a secluded park on the edge of town, and Marcus watches as Emma and Jason step out, laughing and talking like they don't have a care in the world. At this point, Marcus is debating whether to confront them or wait it out. He chooses the latter, deciding it's better to gather more evidence before making any accusations. So he watches, heartbroken, as Emma and Jason sit on a park bench, leaning into each other, talking in hushed tones. It's not the kind of interaction you have with a workout buddy. After what feels like an eternity, Emma and Jason leave. Marcus follows them back to the gym where they part ways. Emma heads home like nothing happened, while Marcus sits in his car, trying to make sense of it all. He's angry, hurt, and most of all, unsure of what to do next. The next big moment comes later that night. Marcus decides it's time to confront Emma. Not about everything, but enough to gauge her reaction. As they sit down for dinner, he casually brings up the gym. "So, how's Jason's boot camp going?" he asks, keeping his tone light. Emma freezes for a split second, a moment so brief that most people wouldn't notice. But Marcus does. She quickly recovers, flashing her usual smile. "Oh, it's great. He's really helping me push my limits." "Yeah? Seems like you two have been spending a lot of time together," Marcus says, his voice tinged with something Emma can't quite place. She laughs nervously. "Well, he's the trainer. It's his job, right?" Marcus says, nodding. But inside, his heart is sinking. He knows she's lying. He doesn't have all the pieces yet, but he has enough to see the cracks in their perfect little life. Over the next few days, Marcus starts to pull away emotionally. He's not ready to confront Emma fully, but he's also not ready to forgive or forget. Instead, he focuses on Sophie, throwing himself into being the best dad he can be. If nothing else, she's his anchor in this storm. But the tension between Marcus and Emma is palpable. She senses something is off, but she doesn't press him about it. Maybe she's too distracted by Jason, or maybe she's just hoping Marcus doesn't notice. Either way, the distance between them grows. Then, one night, everything comes to a head. Marcus can't sleep. The weight of everything he's seen and felt over the past few weeks is too much to bear. So he does something he never thought he'd do. He calls his best friend, Jake. Jake is the kind of guy who tells it like it is. He's blunt, sometimes to a fault, but he's also fiercely loyal. When Marcus spills everything, Emma, Jason, the park, Jake doesn't sugarcoat his response. "Dude, she's cheating," Jake says matter-of-factly. "You don't need more proof. You already know." "But what if I'm wrong?" Marcus asks, his voice cracking. "What if I confront her and it ruins everything?" Jake sighs. "Marcus, I hate to break it to you, but it's already ruined. The only question is, what are you going to do about it?" That conversation sticks with Marcus. For the first time, he starts to accept the possibility that his marriage might not survive this. And as much as it hurts, he knows Jake is right. He can't keep living in limbo, pretending everything is fine when it's not. And so, Marcus makes a decision. The next time he sees Emma and Jason together, he's going to confront her. No more waiting, no more excuses. It's time for the truth. Before we dive into what happens next, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comments if you've ever been in a situation like Marcus's. Your stories might just inspire our next video. Alright, let's jump back into this whirlwind of betrayal and suspense. When we last left off, Marcus had decided he couldn't live in limbo anymore. The decision was made, he was going to confront Emma. But as we all know, things are rarely that simple. The calm before the storm. The following day, Marcus wakes up with a strange sense of calm. It's like his mind has finally stopped racing, and he's laser-focused on the task ahead. He spends the morning with Sophie, playing Tea Party and reading her favorite storybook for what feels like the 100th time. It's bittersweet, this little bubble of normalcy, because Marcus knows it might be the last time he feels truly connected to his family. Emma is unusually cheerful that morning. She hums to herself as she makes breakfast, completely oblivious to the storm brewing in Marcus's mind. It's almost enough to make him second-guess himself. Almost. But then he remembers the text message, the park, the lies. No, he's not imagining this. Emma isn't the woman he thought she was. As Emma heads out the door for another gym session, Marcus doesn't follow her this time. Instead, he picks up his phone and dials Jake. "I'm doing it today," Marcus says, his voice steady. "About time," Jake replies. "Just keep your cool. All right? No matter what happens, you've got Sophie to think about." Jake's words hit hard. Sophie. The thought of how this will affect her nearly breaks Marcus. But he knows he can't ignore the truth any longer. The breaking point. That afternoon, Marcus waits. He knows Emma will be back around 5 o'clock, and he plans to confront her as soon as she walks through the door. He rehearses what he's going to say over and over until the words feel robotic. The clock ticks closer to 5 o'clock, and then, finally, he hears Emma's car pull into the driveway. His heart pounds as the front door opens, and there she is, smiling like she doesn't have a care in the world. "Hey, babe," she says, setting her gym bag down. "How was your day?" Marcus doesn't respond right away. He just stares at her, his expression unreadable. The silence makes Emma pause. "Marcus? What's wrong?" she asks, her voice tinged with concern. And that's when he says it. "I know." Emma freezes. "You know what?" "I know about Jason. The texts, the park, everything." His voice is calm, but his eyes are blazing. For a moment, Emma looks like a deer caught in headlights. But then, to Marcus's surprise, she doesn't deny it. Instead, she sighs and sinks into the nearest chair. "I was hoping you wouldn't find out," she says quietly. And just like that, the dam breaks. Marcus feels a surge of anger, hurt, and betrayal all at once. "Hoping I wouldn't find out? That's your response? Do you even realize what you've done to us? To Sophie?" Emma doesn't look up. "It's not what you think," she says weakly. "Oh, really? Because it sure looks like you've been sneaking around with another man while I've been here raising our daughter and holding this family together." "It wasn't supposed to happen," Emma whispers. "Jason. He made me feel alive again." Marcus lets out a bitter laugh. "Alive? That's your excuse? What about me, Emma? What about us?" The fallout. What follows is a heated argument that lasts for what feels like hours. Emma admits to the affair but insists it wasn't serious. "It was just a distraction," she says. "I never stopped loving you." But Marcus isn't buying it. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this," he snaps. "You wouldn't have lied to me every single day." Emma tries to explain herself, but Marcus has heard enough. He storms out of the house, needing space to think. He drives aimlessly for hours, replaying their conversation in his head. The pain is unbearable, but the anger keeps him going. When he finally returns home, Emma is waiting for him. She looks like she's been crying, but Marcus doesn't feel any sympathy. "What happens now?" she asks, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Marcus replies, "but things can't go back to the way they were." The climax begins. In the days that follow, the tension between Marcus and Emma reaches a boiling point. They try to keep things civil for Sophie's sake, but it's clear that their marriage is hanging by a thread. Marcus begins to research divorce lawyers, while Emma makes desperate attempts to salvage what's left of their relationship. But the real turning point comes when Jason enters the picture again. One evening, as Marcus is leaving the house to pick up Sophie from a playdate, he spots Jason's car parked down the street. His blood boils as he watches Jason casually lean against his car, scrolling through his phone. Without thinking, Marcus marches over to him. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demands. Jason looks up, startled. "Relax, man. I'm just here to talk to Emma." "Talk to Emma?" Marcus scoffs. "You've got some nerve showing up here after everything you've done." Jason smirks. "Look, I get it. You're mad. But maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have come to me. And that's it." Marcus snaps. He lunges at Jason, grabbing him by the collar and slamming him against the car. "You don't get to talk about my marriage," he growls. The commotion draws Emma outside, and she rushes to pull Marcus away. "Stop it," she screams. "You're going to make things worse." Marcus lets go of Jason, but his anger is far from gone. "You're not welcome here," he says, his voice cold. "If I see you near my family again, you'll regret it." Jason raises his hands in mock surrender. All right, I'm leaving." He gets in his car and drives off, but the damage is already done. The aftermath. That night, Marcus and Emma have another confrontation. "Do you see what you've done?" Marcus yells. "You've brought this chaos into our lives, and now I'm supposed to just... what? Pretend everything's fine." Emma breaks down in tears. "I'm sorry," she sobs. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, Marcus says, his voice breaking. And now we're left to pick up the pieces. Despite everything, Marcus knows he has to put Sophie first. He can't let his anger consume him, no matter how much Emma's betrayal hurts. He decides to take some time apart, moving into a friend's guest house while he figures out his next steps. Stay tuned for the next chapter in this emotional roller coaster. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do in Marcus's situation? Alright, folks, let's dive back into Marcus's story. The tension is at an all-time high, and the stakes are rising faster than ever. Marcus is out of the house. Emma is desperate to patch things up, and Jason is lurking on the edges, refusing to let go. It's the perfect storm, and you can feel that something big is about to happen. Marcus's new reality. Living at his friend Jake's guest house, Marcus finds himself in unfamiliar territory. For the first time in years, he's alone. No Emma. No Sophie. Just his thoughts and the deafening silence of an empty room. He tries to focus on work, but his mind keeps drifting back to the chaos he left behind. Jake, ever the loyal friend, does his best to keep Marcus grounded. You've got to take control of this, man, he says one evening over a couple of beers. Don't let her dictate how this ends. Easier said than done. Every time Marcus thinks about Emma's betrayal, he feels like he's drowning in a sea of anger and heartbreak. And then there's Sophie. Sweet, innocent Sophie, who has no idea why Daddy isn't home anymore. Marcus calls her every night, and their conversations are the highlight of his day. But each call is a painful reminder of what he's missing. When are you coming home, Daddy? Sophie asks one evening, her little voice tinged with confusion. Soon, sweetheart, Marcus replies, choking back tears. Daddy just needs to take care of some things first. Emma's desperation. Meanwhile, Emma is spiraling. With Marcus gone, the weight of her actions is hitting her like a ton of bricks. She knows she messed up, big time, and she's terrified that she's lost him for good. She tries everything to win Marcus back. Texts, calls, heartfelt letters. None of which get a response. She even tries to get Jake on her side, showing up at his house unannounced one evening. Emma, you need to leave, Jake says firmly, blocking the doorway. Please, Jake, Emma pleads. Just let me talk to him. I need to make this right. Jake shakes his head. He's not ready to talk to you. And honestly, I don't blame him. You've got to give him space. Emma leaves, defeated, but she refuses to give up. She starts therapy, hoping it will help her understand why she made the choices she did. She knows it's a long shot, but she's willing to do whatever it takes to prove to Marcus that she's changed. Jason's bold move. While Marcus and Emma are navigating their separate struggles, Jason decides to make his move. He shows up at Emma's house one evening, uninvited and unannounced. What are you doing here? Emma asks, her voice laced with frustration. I wanted to see you, Jason says, flashing his trademark smirk. You've been ignoring my calls. Because this is over, Emma snaps. I told you that. Jason doesn't back down. Come on, Emma. You don't really want to go back to him, do you? We had something real. Emma glares at him. What we had was a mistake. I'm trying to fix my marriage, Jason. You need to leave. But Jason isn't the kind of guy who takes no for an answer. Fix your marriage? He scoffs. He's never going to forgive you. You might as well stop pretending. Before Emma can respond, Sophie walks into the room, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Mommy, who's that? She asks. Emma's heart sinks. No one, sweetie, she says quickly. Go back to bed. But Sophie doesn't move. She just stares at Jason, her little face filled with curiosity and confusion. Jason, clearly uncomfortable, mutters something about leaving and heads for the door. This isn't over, he says before walking out. The breaking point. The next day, Marcus gets a call from Emma. Her voice is shaky, and he can tell she's been crying. Marcus, we need to talk, she says. It's about Jason. Marcus feels his stomach drop. What about him? He came to the house last night, Emma admits. Sophie saw him. That's all Marcus needs to hear. He hangs up and jumps into his car, his mind racing. He's done playing games. It's time to end this once and for all. When he arrives at the house, Emma is waiting for him on the porch. She looks exhausted, like she hasn't slept in days. "We need to figure this out," she says as he approaches. Marcus doesn't respond. He brushes past her and heads inside, where Sophie is playing with her toys in the living room. She looks up and beams when she sees him. "Daddy!" she cries, running into his arms. Marcus holds her tightly, savoring the moment. But the joy is short-lived. He knows he can't stay long. Not like this. After putting Sophie to bed, Marcus and Emma sit down to talk. The tension in the room is palpable, and for a moment, neither of them says anything. Finally, Marcus breaks the silence. "I want him out of our lives." Emma nods. "I already told him it's over. I swear, Marcus, I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." But Marcus isn't convinced. "It's not that simple, Emma. You let him into our lives. You lied to me. How am I supposed to trust you again?" Emma doesn't have an answer. All she can do is promise to keep trying. A dangerous encounter. A few days later, Marcus is at the park with Sophie when he spots Jason again. This time, he's sitting on a bench, watching them from a distance. Marcus's blood boils as he realizes that Jason isn't just a threat to his marriage. He's a threat to his family. Without thinking, Marcus approaches him. "What the hell do you think you're doing here?" he demands. Jason looks up, unfazed. "Relax, man. I'm just enjoying the view." "Stay away from my family," Marcus growls. "This is your last warning." Jason stands up, smirking. "Or what? You gonna hit me in front of your kid?" Marcus clenches his fists, but he knows Jason is right. He can't risk losing control, not here, not now. Instead, he takes Sophie's hand and walks away, vowing to find a way to protect his family from Jason's toxic presence. The turning point. Later that evening, Marcus sits down with Emma and lays everything out. "This isn't just about us anymore," he says. "This is about Sophie. I won't let Jason ruin her childhood." Emma agrees, and for the first time in weeks, they seem to be on the same page. They decide to get a restraining order against Jason, hoping it will finally put an end to his interference. As they work together to protect their daughter, Marcus starts to see a glimmer of the woman he fell in love with all those years ago. It's a small step, but it's enough to give him hope. And that's where we'll leave things for now. The tension is high, and the stakes are higher. Will Marcus and Emma be able to rebuild their family? Or is this the beginning of the end? Stay tuned for the next chapter of this gripping story. And hey, if you're enjoying this series, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us. Alright folks, this is where things start to really heat up. Marcus, Emma, and Jason are heading toward a collision course, and you can feel the tension in every moment. Let's dive into the unfolding drama as we edge closer to the climax of this intense story. Jason's obsession deepens. Jason isn't taking the restraining order lightly. In fact, it seems to fuel his obsession even more. Late one night, Marcus receives an anonymous text message. It's a photo of Emma and Sophie, taken through the window of their house. Marcus's blood runs cold. The message is clear. Jason isn't done. He immediately calls Emma to warn her. "Lock all the doors and windows," he says. "I'm coming over." When he arrives, Emma is visibly shaken, but she tries to stay strong for Sophie. "What does he want?" she asks, her voice trembling. "He wants to scare us," Marcus replies. "And he's doing a damn good job." A plan for protection. Determined to protect his family, Marcus takes action. He installs security cameras around the house and hires a private investigator to dig into Jason's background. What he discovers sends chills down his spine. Jason has a history of stalking. Several restraining orders, multiple arrests. All signs that Marcus and Emma are dealing with a dangerous man. But Marcus isn't just worried about Jason. He's also grappling with his own anger and frustration. The betrayal he felt when he first discovered Emma's affair is still fresh, and now he has to play the role of protector. Despite his lingering resentment, Marcus finds himself spending more time at the house. At first, it's just to keep an eye on things, but gradually he begins to reconnect with Emma. They start talking, really talking, for the first time in months. A glimmer of hope. One evening, after Sophie has gone to bed, Marcus and Emma sit on the porch, sipping coffee. The silence between them is heavy, but it's not uncomfortable. "I'm sorry," Emma says quietly, breaking the silence. "For everything." Marcus nods, but he doesn't say anything. He's heard her apologies before, and while he believes she's sincere, forgiveness is a different matter. "You don't have to forgive me," Emma continues, her voice trembling. "I just need you to know how much I regret what I did." Marcus takes a deep breath. "It's not about forgiveness, Emma. It's about trust. And right now, I don't know if I can trust you." The honesty in his voice is like a punch to the gut. But Emma doesn't argue. She knows he's right. Instead, she nods and looks out into the night, silently vowing to earn back his trust, no matter how long it takes. Jason strikes again. Just when things start to feel a little calmer, Jason makes his next move. Early one morning, Emma steps outside to get the newspaper and finds a dead bird on the porch. Its wings are splayed out, and there's a note tied to its leg. The note reads, "This isn't over." Emma is terrified, and when Marcus arrives later that morning, she shows him the bird and the note. "What are we going to do?" she asks, tears streaming down her face. "We're going to fight," Marcus replies, his voice steely. He's not going to scare us into submission. They call the police and show them the note, but there's little the officers can do. Without evidence that he violated the restraining order, our hands are tied, one of them says. Marcus clenches his fists in frustration. "So we're just supposed to wait until he does something worse?" The officer shrugs, clearly uncomfortable. "I suggest you stay vigilant." The turning point. Realizing they can't rely on the police, Marcus and Emma decide to take matters into their own hands. They reach out to the private investigator again, asking him to find out where Jason is staying. A few days later, they get their answer. Jason is holed up in a cheap motel on the edge of town. Armed with this information, Marcus decides it's time for a confrontation. Against Emma's protests, he drives to the motel late one night. He parks a few spaces away from Jason's car and waits, his heart pounding in his chest. When Jason finally emerges from his room, Marcus steps out of his car and calls out to him. "We need to talk." Jason smirks, clearly unfazed. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Marcus approaches him, keeping his voice low and steady. "This ends now. You stay away from my family, or I'll make you regret it." Jason laughs, a cold, menacing sound. "You don't scare me, Marcus. You think you're the hero in this story, but you're not. Emma doesn't love you anymore. She loves me." Marcus clenches his fists, but he forces himself to stay calm. "She doesn't love you, Jason. She never did. You're just a mistake she's trying to forget." Jason's smirk falters for a moment, but he quickly recovers. "We'll see about that," he says before turning and walking away. Emma's breakthrough. While Marcus is dealing with Jason, Emma has her own breakthrough. During a therapy session, she finally confronts the root of her actions. She realizes that her affair wasn't just a betrayal of Marcus. It was a betrayal of herself. "I was selfish," she admits. "I was looking for something I thought I was missing. But the truth is, I had everything I needed all along." Her therapist nods. "The question now is, what are you going to do about it?" Emma doesn't have an answer yet, but she knows she's ready to fight for her family. She starts taking small steps to rebuild Marcus's trust, from being transparent about her actions to showing him how much she values their partnership. A dangerous encounter. The tension reaches a boiling point when Jason shows up at the park while Marcus and Sophie are there. This time, he doesn't stay in the shadows. He approaches them directly, ignoring Marcus's warnings to stay away. "Hey, Sophie," Jason says, crouching down to her level. "Remember me?" Marcus steps between them, his voice low and dangerous. "Get away from her." Jason smirks. "Relax, man. I just wanted to say hi." But Marcus isn't having it. "If you ever come near her again, I swear I'll—" "Swear you'll what?" Jason interrupts. "You're not going to do anything. You're too afraid of getting your hands dirty." That's when Marcus realizes something. Jason thrives on fear. He wants to provoke a reaction to make Marcus lose control. But Marcus isn't going to give him the satisfaction. Instead, he grabs Sophie's hand and walks away, leaving Jason standing alone. It's a small victory, but it feels like a turning point. The stakes are higher than ever, and the tension is almost unbearable. Will Marcus and Emma be able to protect their family from Jason's escalating threats? Or is this just the calm before the storm? Stay tuned for the next chapter of this gripping story. And remember, if you're enjoying this series, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support means everything to us. Welcome back, everyone. The story has reached a fever pitch, and the stakes are higher than ever. Marcus, Emma, and Sophie are fighting for their safety, their sanity, and their future. Jason's threats are escalating, and the tension is palpable. So, let's jump right into the pivotal moments that push this story toward its climax. Jason crosses the line. Jason's obsession takes a dangerous turn. Late one night, Emma is jolted awake by the sound of shattering glass. She rushes to Sophie's room, only to find Marcus already there, shielding their daughter from the broken window. A brick lies on the floor, a crude message scrawled on it. "You can't hide forever." Emma's fear turns into resolve. "This has to end, Marcus," she says, her voice trembling but firm. "We can't keep living like this." Marcus agrees, but the strain is starting to show. His once calm and measured demeanor is giving way to anger and frustration. "He wants us to break," Marcus says, pacing the living room, "and I'll be damned if I let him win." The police arrive and take a report, but their response feels perfunctory. "We'll do what we can," one officer says, but his tone lacks conviction. For Emma, this is the last straw. She decides to take matters into her own hands, much to Marcus's concern. "What are you planning?" he asks. "I'm not going to let him control us anymore," she replies, her jaw set with determination. "If the police won't help, I'll find another way." Emma's gamble. Emma contacts the private investigator again, this time asking him to dig deeper into Jason's past. She's not just looking for dirt, she's looking for leverage. What the investigator uncovers is shocking. Jason has a history of manipulation and violence, but he also has a vulnerability. A pending lawsuit from a former employer for harassment. If the lawsuit goes public, it could ruin him financially and socially. Armed with this information, Emma devises a plan. She arranges to meet Jason in a public place, despite Marcus's vehement objections. "You're walking into the lion's den," he warns her. "I have to," she replies. "He needs to know we're not afraid of him." The meeting takes place at a bustling coffee shop. Jason arrives, his smug confidence on full display. "Emma," he says, leaning back in his chair, "I knew you'd come around." But Emma isn't here to play games. She slides a folder across the table, her expression unflinching. "This is everything I know about you, Jason. Every dirty little secret. Back off, or I'll make sure the world knows exactly who you are." For the first time, Jason looks rattled. He flips through the documents, his smirk faltering. "You think this scares me?" he says, though his voice lacks its usual bravado. "It should," Emma replies, "because if you don't stop, I'll destroy you." Marcus takes a stand. While Emma is confronting Jason, Marcus is dealing with his own inner turmoil. He spent so much time being angry, at Emma, at Jason, at the world, that he's forgotten what it feels like to be happy. But now, seeing Emma fight for their family reignites something in him. He starts to see Emma in a new light. She's not just the woman who betrayed him. She's also the woman who's willing to risk everything to make things right. It's a small step, but it's enough to make him consider the possibility of forgiveness. But there's no time to dwell on these thoughts. Marcus receives a call from Emma, her voice urgent. "Jason didn't take the bait," she says. "He's more dangerous than ever." Marcus's heart sinks. "Where are you?" "I'm on my way home," she replies. But I think he's following me. The final confrontation. Marcus springs into action, calling the police and then grabbing a baseball bat from the garage. He positions himself by the front door, his heart pounding as he waits for Emma to arrive. When she pulls into the driveway, Jason's car is right behind her. Emma runs inside, locking the door behind her. "He's out there," she says, breathless. Marcus nods, gripping the bat tightly. "Stay with Sophie." Jason doesn't try to sneak in. Instead, he pounds on the door, shouting obscenities. "You can't hide from me, Emma. Open the door." Marcus steps outside, slamming the door shut behind him. He and Jason face off under the glow of the porch light. "This ends now," Marcus says, his voice low and steady. Jason laughs, but it's a hollow sound. "You think you can scare me with that bat?" he sneers. "You're pathetic." But Marcus isn't backing down. "Leave my family alone, or I'll make you regret it." Jason lunges and the two men grapple. It's a brutal, chaotic fight, but Marcus's determination gives him the upper hand. He swings the bat, landing a solid hit on Jason's arm, and Jason stumbles back, clutching his shoulder. "You're done," Marcus says, standing over him. "If you ever come near my family again, I'll finish what I started." The aftermath. The police arrive just as Jason is staggering to his feet. They arrest him for violating the restraining order, and this time they seem to take the situation seriously. One officer pulls Marcus aside. "We've been building a case against him," he says. "Your report might be the final piece we need." As Jason is led away in handcuffs, Marcus and Emma stand on the porch, watching in silence. It's a small victory, but it feels monumental. That night, as they sit together in the living room, Marcus finally speaks. "I don't know what's going to happen between us," he says. "But I know one thing, we're stronger together." Emma nods, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you." The story is barreling toward its emotional conclusion. Will Marcus and Emma be able to rebuild their relationship? Or is the damage too great to repair? Don't miss the final chapter of this gripping tale. And if you've been enjoying this journey, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support keeps us going. Welcome back. The tension is almost unbearable, and the story is racing toward its climactic moments. Jason's relentless pursuit has pushed Marcus and Emma to the brink, testing their limits and forcing them to confront not only their tormentor, but also the fractures within their own relationship. Let's dive back into the story as the stakes reach their highest point yet. Jason's last gambit. Just when Marcus and Emma think they've bought some peace, Jason pulls one final, audacious move. From jail, he arranges to have a friend post his bail. The system, once again, fails to protect the victims, and Jason is free, angrier and more determined than ever. Emma receives an ominous email later that evening, containing photos of her, Marcus, and Sophie at various points throughout the last few days. The message is simple but chilling. "I'm always watching." Emma feels the weight of despair creeping in. "How does he keep getting away with this?" she asks Marcus, her voice shaking. But Marcus, now fully committed to protecting his family, doesn't flinch. "We'll figure it out," he says. "No more running. No more hiding. We end this." Sophie's fear. Meanwhile, Sophie, who has been a quiet observer of the chaos around her, finally breaks down. One night, as Marcus and Emma tuck her into bed, she bursts into tears. "I'm scared, Daddy," she whispers. "Is the bad man going to hurt us?" Marcus kneels by her bed, taking her tiny hand in his. "No, sweetheart," he says firmly. "Mommy and I won't let anything happen to you. I promise." But as he leaves her room, Marcus feels the crushing weight of that promise. It's a vow he's determined to keep, but the cost is becoming increasingly high. The turning point. With the latest threat hanging over them, Marcus and Emma decide to take drastic action. Emma revisits the private investigator, asking him to help track Jason's whereabouts and dig into his associates. Meanwhile, Marcus enlists the help of a lawyer to strengthen their case against Jason. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Olivia Grant, doesn't mince words. "You're dealing with a dangerous man," she says. "But if you want to take him down, you need to play smart. Gather evidence, document everything, and don't engage with him directly." It's a sobering reminder of how fragile their situation is. But Marcus and Emma are resolute. They know this is their last chance to put an end to Jason's reign of terror. Jason strikes again. As the days pass, Jason grows bolder. He sends another message, this time directly to Marcus. "You're not man enough to stop me." The taunt ignites a fire in Marcus. "That's it," he says, slamming his phone onto the table. "He wants a fight? He'll get one." But Emma intervenes, her voice steady but firm. "That's what he wants, Marcus. Don't give him the satisfaction. We have to stick to the plan." It's a tense moment, but Marcus realizes she's right. Acting impulsively would only give Jason more ammunition. Instead, Marcus channels his anger into action, helping Emma compile a detailed record of every interaction, threat, and incident involving Jason. The setup. The private investigator delivers a breakthrough. Jason has been using an abandoned warehouse as a base of operations. It's where he's been storing his surveillance equipment and planning his next moves. Emma and Marcus share a look, the unspoken question hanging between them. Do we confront him, or do we wait for the authorities? Ultimately, they decide to tip off the police, providing them with the investigators' findings. But knowing how unreliable the system has been, Marcus and Emma also make their own preparations. They install extra security measures at home and set up a system to alert their neighbors in case of an emergency. The climax begins. Late one night, the security alarm blares, jolting Marcus and Emma awake. Marcus grabs the bat from under the bed, his heart pounding as he rushes to check the surveillance cameras. There on the screen is Jason, standing in their front yard, a menacing grin on his face. He holds a crowbar in one hand, tapping it lightly against his palm. Emma calls the police while Marcus moves to the front door, his grip tightening on the bat. "Stay inside," he tells Emma, his voice steady but laced with tension. "I'll handle this." Jason begins to taunt Marcus, his voice carrying through the night. "Come on, hero," he calls out. "Let's see what you've got." Marcus steps outside, standing his ground as Jason approaches. "This is your last chance to walk away," Marcus says, his tone calm but resolute. Jason laughs, a harsh, grating sound. "Or what? You're gonna stop me? You're just a washed-up loser clinging to scraps." The showdown. What follows is a brutal, raw confrontation. Jason swings the crowbar, but Marcus dodges, using the bat to block his strikes. The two men clash in a violent struggle, their rage boiling over into every swing and blow. Inside, Emma clings to Sophie, whispering reassurances as they wait for the police to arrive. "It's going to be okay," she says, more to herself than to Sophie. Outside, Marcus gains the upper hand, knocking the crowbar out of Jason's hands. He pins Jason to the ground, his bat raised, but then hesitates. "You're not worth it," Marcus says, his voice trembling with restrained fury. The sound of sirens fills the air, and moments later, the police arrive, pulling Marcus off Jason and taking the latter into custody. Jason screams threats as he's hauled away, but this time, his words feel hollow, a glimmer of hope. As the chaos subsides, Marcus and Emma hold each other tightly, the weight of the night sinking in. "It's over," Marcus whispers. "It's finally over." But is it? The scars Jason left, both physical and emotional, will take time to heal. Still, for the first time in months, there's a sense of hope. They've faced their darkest hour and come out the other side, battered but unbroken. The story is hurtling toward its emotional conclusion. How will Marcus and Emma rebuild their lives after this ordeal? Stay tuned for the final chapter, where we'll explore the aftermath and the path forward. And as always, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. And here we are, at the end of a journey that was equal parts chaos and catharsis. The storm that Jason brought into Marcus and Emma's lives has finally passed, leaving behind a landscape of hard-earned lessons, emotional scars, and, most importantly, hope for a new beginning. Let's dive into the final chapter of their story. Justice served. The days following Jason's arrest feel surreal for Marcus and Emma. The police find damning evidence at the warehouse, including detailed plans of Jason's stalking, photos, and even recordings of his threats. With this concrete evidence, there's no chance of Jason walking free this time. During the trial, Jason's bravado crumbles. He's no longer the overconfident antagonist but a desperate man trying, and failing, to justify his actions. The court sentences him to a lengthy prison term, and for the first time in what feels like forever, Marcus and Emma can breathe freely. "I never thought we'd see this day," Emma says as they leave the courtroom hand in hand. Marcus squeezes her fingers gently, his eyes reflecting a mix of relief and exhaustion. "It's over," he says, his voice filled with quiet determination. "Now we can really start living, rebuilding the pieces." The victory, while monumental, isn't the end of the road. Marcus and Emma have a lot of healing to do, both individually and as a family. The experience has left its mark, but it's also brought them closer in ways they never imagined. Marcus, once hesitant and unsure of his role in the family, emerges stronger and more confident. He starts seeing a counselor to work through the trauma, and he encourages Emma to do the same. "We've been through hell," he tells her one evening, "but we owe it to Sophie and to ourselves to come out of this stronger." Emma, too, finds a new sense of purpose. She channels her experiences into advocacy, joining a local organization that supports victims of stalking and domestic abuse. Sharing her story is difficult at first, but it becomes a source of strength. "If I can help even one person avoid what we went through," she says, "then it's worth it." Sophie's resilience. And what about little Sophie? Children have an incredible way of bouncing back, and Sophie is no exception. With her parents now fully present and engaged, she begins to blossom. She takes up painting, her artwork bright and full of life, a stark contrast to the fear and uncertainty that once shadowed her days. One afternoon, Sophie presents Marcus with a drawing of their family. It's simple but poignant. Her, Marcus, and Emma standing under a bright sun, holding hands. "This is us now, Daddy," she says, her smile wide and unburdened. For Marcus, it's a moment that cements everything they've fought for. A quiet celebration. A few weeks later, Marcus and Emma host a small gathering to celebrate their newfound peace. It's nothing fancy, just close friends, a few neighbors, and plenty of laughter. As they sit in their backyard, the sound of Sophie's giggles mixing with the chatter of friends, Marcus turns to Emma. "This," he says, gesturing to the scene around them, "is what it's all about." Emma smiles, her eyes glistening. "We made it," she whispers. "Lessons learned." The journey wasn't easy, and it came with its share of pain. But Marcus and Emma come out of it with a deeper understanding of themselves and each other. They've learned the importance of standing together in the face of adversity, of leaning on one another when the weight of the world feels too heavy. Most importantly, they've learned that even in the darkest moments, there's always a path forward. It might not be easy, and it might not be clear at first, but with determination and love, anything is possible. Looking to the future. With Jason behind bars and the threat he posed now just a memory, Marcus and Emma turn their attention to the future. They've decided to move to a new home, a fresh start in every sense of the word. The new house isn't just a place to live. It's a symbol of their resilience and a blank canvas for the life they want to build. On moving day, as they pack the last of their belongings, Marcus takes a moment to reflect. He looks at Emma, her face glowing with excitement, and Sophie, her laughter filling the air, and he feels a sense of contentment he hasn't known in years. "We're ready," he says, more to himself than anyone else. And this time he truly believes it. A note of gratitude. Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to thank all of you for sticking with us through this intense and emotional journey. Stories like Marcus and Emma's remind us of the power of resilience, the importance of standing up for what's right, and the strength that comes from love and unity. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more like it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me, and it helps us continue bringing you stories that inspire, entertain, and sometimes even give you goosebumps. And hey, if you've ever faced a situation that tested your strength and character, share your story in the comments below. You never know who you might inspire. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay strong, stay hopeful, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.